Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Loren Feldman. I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about the stories and issues we think business owners should be following this week. Welcome, Gene.
Hey, Loren, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing just fine. Been on the road.
As usual. Anywhere interesting?
I spoke to a bunch of people that sell Toyota material handling equipment, like forklift businesses,
Wow.
In Indianapolis. I spoke to an association of HVAC contractors in Sacramento. And I spoke to a bunch of people that sell and install fire safety equipment, which was supposed to be in Tampa last week, but turned out not to be in Tampa. We did that somewhere else.
Did they tell you they moved it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was warned in advance. But lots of different businesses in different industries all experiencing different things.
Interesting. All right. As usual, you've been writing and talking about issues that matter to business owners. I want to start with a piece you wrote very recently about how business owners can try to save on health insurance, topic that comes up this time of year. No surprise, rates are expected to be going up. They always go up. But is it looking worse this year given the inflationary environment?
No, I mean, worse than in years past, but not catastrophic. We're looking at anywhere from a 6 to 8% increase in health insurance. And, Lauren, I did this for a piece for the Philly Inquirer. I learned two interesting things that I think I'd love to share with you.
That's what we're here for. Absolutely.
Yeah. So first of all, from speaking to the benefits advisors and my clients as well, there's been this big increase in level funded plans. That's the first thing. A level funded plan is...
Yeah, do tell.
Yeah, it's a form of self-insurance. So you say to your employees, listen, for the first $1,000 in your medical expenses, you come to us first and we'll write you a check, or administrator will write you a check. And then after that $1,000, a group insurance plan will kick in to cover any of the big potential issues, right? So in a sense, as a business owner, you're self-insuring at the lowest level, right? If you have a healthy workforce and a young workforce, particularly if you're like a startup or a younger company, if you're just paying straight out group insurance for people, a lot of your employees probably aren't even using it, which means you're overpaying. So you might as well self-insure at the lower level. And then, your group insurance rates themselves are lower as well because the insurance companies, you're taking some risk at the lowest level. So you really do wind up saving, a fairly significant amount, like anywhere from 8 to 12% on your health insurance. If you take a step into this level funded type of arrangement, you should talk to your benefits administrator.
Companies have been self-insuring for a long time. I've had the impression that it was primarily big companies that did that.
Yes.
Has something changed?
Yeah, that's the impression, and you're correct with that impression. And it has always been that. But what's changed over the past few years is history. The level funded arrangements, have been around for about a decade or so. It's taken that long for it to have acceptance among the small business market. And, because back when it was originally, started up, people were like, I don't know. And, I'm not sure there's a new thing. Now it's becoming more and more common. And it's turned out to be like a good way that you can use to cut your health insurance costs. So there's that, right? The second piece of advice, and I had a few others in this Inquirer article, but the second big one that I really loved is about raises. Like we know with inflation, like ADP just came out with information late last week that said their records show, and this is actual data, not a survey, a 7.8% increase in compensation. 7.8%.
For this year?
Yeah. So, people are giving raises. My advice, and this is what I've learned, is instead of giving a raise to your employees, consider paying down their health insurance more. In other words, paying more for their health insurance. If you do that, first of all, if you give them a raise, you have to pay employer taxes on that, right? FICA and Medicare, and your employees get taxed on that. But if you instead say, listen, I'm not going to give you a raise, I'm just going to contribute more to your health insurance, the employee does not get taxed on that. You don't pay any employer taxes and you get a deduction for it. So it's a really good way to give an employee a raise and a really, and save money on taxes. And in the end, their net paycheck is going to be bigger because you're paying more for their health insurance, but you're saving money. Your business is on taxes and you're saving them money as well. So I came away saying, wow, that's a pretty good strategy for trying to help control these health insurance costs.
That's a really interesting idea. And in part, I think, because I think a lot of employees, and perhaps I was one of them at one time, kind of take the health insurance part of compensation for granted. And I know one business owner in particular who just brings it up in every conversation about compensation, just to make sure he reminds employees that it's not just the salary you're getting. I'm also paying this, this, and this. And I want you to know that that's part of your package. I wonder if this might be a good way to remind people as well.
Great point. That is a great point. And it is, listen, I mean, health insurance remains the number one benefit that's requested by employees. I mean, it's certainly important to people. I think it's more of just an education thing. You have an employee saying, what, I'm not going to get more, higher salary. And you have to be like, well, no, you're going to get more. It's just, we're saving you money by doing this. You know what I mean? So it's really a communication and education type of thing that, if you can get the point across, I think it could really be helpful.
You talk to tons of business owners. At this point, especially given the labor market that we've been through, how feasible is it for smaller businesses to say to their employees, look, we're not going to give you health insurance, go into the markets and get it, go into the affordable care market, get it there. Can that be done these days?
Yeah. So it's here's the thing. The reason why health reimbursement accounts, which is another thing I talk about in that article, has become so popular, is because it helps businesses provide for health insurance without breaking their bank. So there are a lot of small businesses out there that don't provide health insurance at all. Because they don't qualify, or the group plans are too expensive, or whatever.
And it's not required by law if you have fewer than 50 employees, right?
Correct. So you're trying to attract those employees. You can say to your employees, listen, I know we don't have a health insurance plan. However, we will put some money into an HRA for you. We have that set up, a health reimbursement account. That way you can take that money and either go on the healthcare exchanges or go to one of these brokers that we recommend, and it can offset the cost that you would have to get health insurance on your own. HRAs are becoming just more and more popular among very small businesses who don't have health insurance plans, but want to be able to provide some kind of a health benefit, if that makes sense.
That does. Great tips. All right. Next topic. You recently wrote about whether businesses should revisit their workplace drug policies. Even after you wrote it, this became even more timely when President Biden announced his pardons for federal marijuana convictions. What prompted you to write about this?
I did a podcast for a company where I interviewed Seth Rogen.
Not the answer I was expecting.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now. And we had this interview because it was a great interview, and it was all about his company, which happens to be a cannabis company. And because of that, I was unable to get that podcast published because
really.
Because the company that I did this for, they're conservative. They're a very good company, but marijuana is still sort of like this, issue. And right now it's a class 1 narcotic,
Schedule 1, right? Like heroin or
So like you can't even banks won't support. I mean, you have all these cannabis stores, they're still dealing in cash because it's difficult for them to have banking relationships because the banks are afraid that right now the federal government could come down on a bank very hard. If they do business with a company that's selling what do we say it was, a category 1, a class 1 narcotic, you know what I mean? Schedule 1, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and then big brands that, they don't want to tarnish their brands. They're very nervous about that stuff. Anyway, you asked, that's why I wanted to write about it. I was like, this cannabis thing is, I know so many people. I mean, come on, you know what I mean? And it's legal in New Jersey. It's legal in 26 states, recreational, let alone, medical. So I thought like, geez, it does have a big impact on employers. And that's why I went out and I interviewed, some businesses and some experts that are in that field about cannabis for employers. And what do you do? And really, the answer is this. Most employers that I'm seeing right now are pulling back on testing for cannabis. It's like testing for alcohol. Plus the fact that cannabis stays in your system a lot longer than alcohol. In such tight labor times, to have to turn somebody away because they were smoking weed last weekend is, a lot of employers are like, that's just not worth it. We still want this employee. Now, some employers, if they are handling hazardous materials or doing something that's really
Heavy equipment.
Whatever. Okay. They have like a zero tolerance policy. I get that. Okay. That's fine. But other employers, they're basically like, listen, we're not going to test for it before. However, we do reserve the right to test if we feel that you are under the influence, just as if we felt you were drunk at work. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, then we do have the right to suspend or terminate you, which is fair enough. But I'm seeing a lot of employers just pull back on the whole testing for cannabis. And even if they do the drug tests and cannabis does show up in it, they're ignoring it because it's just not their, it's not something that they want to deal with. So that's what, the point of that article was to say, hey, listen, if you're, trying to reevaluate your drug testing, rules for your company and what do you do about cannabis? This is what I'm seeing in Pennsylvania and Jersey and Delaware. Employers are saying they're basically giving it a pass unless it's really a special situation.
Did you find any employers who are continuing to do it, even though their employees are not engaged in heavy equipment activities or anything like that?
No, not really. Not really. Most of the employers that I'm talking to, that I talk to, they're just sort of looking away from it. It is amazing, Loren, that today. Again, it's really weird. The attitudes towards cannabis have changed so much, And it reminded me, like I interviewed Tommy Chung from Cheech and Chong.
Wow, Tommy Chung and Seth Rogen. That's impressive.
Right. For like 8 or 9 years ago, I think I did a piece for Inc. magazine, and they boy, that guy went through. He was arrested. He spent time in prison. He went, I was thinking like, geez, what it must be like for a guy like that went through all of that in the 60s and 70s. And now it's pretty much, fine. He was right all along,
Although there are people who have convictions that make it hard for them to get jobs. Hopefully that's changing too.
Yeah. But cannabis, again, is more and more I'm seeing among business owners treating it like alcohol. So that's what it is.
Well, it's just so weird that you have people, entrepreneurs opening businesses, doing well, making money in a lot of states, while the federal laws still branded as Schedule 1.
It is weird. And I applaud the president for doing that. And I went back to that company about the podcast and said, like, can we release this podcast now? I mean, like, the president of the United States basically saying this needs to be changed. You know what I mean? Like,
and did they? Are they?
No. They're
not
still
going to
thinking
happen.
about it. They're still thinking about it.
That's
so
too bad. All right.
But anyways, Seth Rogen, very nice guy.
Good to know. Last topic. This is a little tricky one. You recently wrote a piece kind of attacking Elizabeth Warren for being anti-business. I have no interest in defending Elizabeth Warren, and I have no interest in talking politics. What I do find interesting are the issues that you cited with Elizabeth Warren and her allegedly being anti-business. And I think there's some good conversations to be had about those issues, especially as they affect smaller businesses. Kind of getting at the point of, it's not all the same for big corporate businesses and smaller businesses. So, for example, you criticized her for bashing the Fed and its attempts to combat inflation by raising rates. And I guess my question to you is, isn't that a legitimate conversation to be had? Choosing between recession or inflation, I think people can disagree as to where the Fed should be placing its emphasis and doing its work. What do you think?
Oh, I completely agree. And she has her point of view and I have my point of view. And I'm not saying that either of us are right.
Her point of view is that the Fed is pushing much too hard on inflation and
it's going to cause a recession and it's going to
hurt a lot of people,
work,
including potentially business owners.
And my point of view is, based on history and what I studied in economics in college. I was an economics major in college. I know that the biggest tool that the Fed has to rein in the supply of money and therefore, help lower the rate of inflation is by raising interest rates, make it more costly to circulate money in the system. And that's been proven time and time again that does work. It's painful though. And I don't like it. I don't like raising interest rates. And I can see it right now. It's going to limit financing for small businesses, make financing that much harder. Look at the impact that's having already in the technology industry where capital is drying up. And she's right.
The housing market.
Yeah, they're in the housing market, and those industries right now, they are both in recessions and they are both laying off tens of thousands of workers as we speak. That is happening. So she's not wrong. She is, doing that is going to cause recession, is going to cause pain for people, and they're going to have to be, they're going to have to be laid off. However, I feel that she is incorrect in that not doing something about this, not taking the steps that the Fed is doing right now, is going to prolong and create even bigger problems in the future for the economy. And I think that her rhetoric is hurting businesses, because if we take the medicine now, it's been proven that ultimately we can get confidence back in our system and bring inflation back under control, which is a huge issue for my clients. We have to take that medicine and do what we got to do. So that was my first issue with her, is I just don't agree with her economics.
I did some research on this. Not on the economics of it, but on who else might hold the same position that she does. And you know who I found agrees with her? Steve Forbes, of all people. Talk about strange bedfellows, Steve Forbes and Elizabeth Warren. But you wouldn't say that Steve Forbes is anti-business, I suspect.
No, I mean, I can't really speak towards Steve Forbes. And like you said, it's definitely a debatable topic. I mean, having said that, I can also, I could name a number of economists that agree with the move that the Fed's taking as well, So I don't know. I mean, I just, I can't, and it's funny because here I'm saying like, well, a bunch of notable economists like Larry Summers and, others that don't think it's enough, but then again, what do these economists know? If they were so smart, would we be in the situation that we're in right now?
Well, there's the old line about economists predicting 9 of the last 5 recessions.
Exactly right. But it's just funny with Senator Warren, and I do like her, and I do think she is a smart woman, and she knows her base, and she knows what she's out for. She's a very populist politician, like Bernie Sanders. She's all about the workers. And all, but to such an extent though, Loren, the point that I wrote about is that it comes across to my clients, to myself, to the business community, is just very anti-business. And we see what happens to markets and to an economy when you have leaders that are vilifying businesses in this country, or and it trickles down to small business. No political leader is going to attack small business unless they defrauded the government. But small businesses themselves are they're excluded. But by attacking big businesses, you are in effect attacking small businesses who rely on these big businesses for a lot of their revenues, as well as their employees to spend money at their stores and their restaurants. And when you keep going on and on about, making it easier to unionize, making higher wages for workers, but it's, again, I get it. I get that there's good things in all of that, but the rhetoric itself, after a while, it creates an environment, an antagonistic environment. And, I was at a client like 2 weeks ago. This is what prompted me to write this piece, by the way. He has about like 80 employees. And he's like, just in the past couple of years, it's like I come into my company and I feel like my employees like hate me. You know what I mean? Because I don't offer a 4-day work week, or I don't champion, the formation of a union in my business. You know what I mean? Like and that has an impact on the psychology of business owners when they feel like they're fighting with their employees. They're the bad guys. And I think the politicians like Senator Warren exacerbate that. That's my issue.
That's interesting. I think I understand your point of view better now. I do think a lot of that vitriol, though, is that you're describing coming from Senator Warren and others like her. And again, I'm not here to defend her. I'm just interested in the issues. I think a lot of that is aimed at, big businesses. And I understand your trickle down theory with that. But, her signature issue, I think, is antitrust. And you could make an argument that she's really supporting smaller businesses by making the antitrust argument, but, going after big tech, for example. Does that make sense to you?
It does. Yeah. I definitely will concede that point that, there isn't antitrust. Also, she's against big tech as well. With all the benefits that some of these companies have provided, I think the role of there is a role of government to make sure that they stay in check. Having said all of that, I really do feel that there's a place in this world for the Elizabeth Warrens, the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs of the world. I think we need to hear them. And I think that we then need to decide whether or not we agree or not. But I think that, they raise issues that are worthwhile debating. The only thing that I have an issue with is that depending on how they raise their issues, if you go on Senator Warren's Twitter feed, it is just attack after attack after attack on corporate America. And we should be raising taxes more, and we should go after the wealthy, and we should go after, more money for the IRS, so we can have more audits. And, we need more workplace protections.
Is that an anti-business position?
No, with the IRS one?
Yeah.
No, I wrote about that separately as well, telling people they shouldn't panic about the money that's going after, towards the IRS. That's another topic altogether. Is it an anti-business position? In my personal view, I don't think it should be. It doesn't need to be. If you've got your taxes, if you're paying your taxes, you shouldn't have a problem with the IRS. But it comes off as it. You know what I mean? That plus all the other things, Loren, they all together, it just comes off as an anti-business rhetoric.
Interesting.
And I think you see that right now in the economy and the markets. You ask anybody that's running a company, like these heating and air conditioning people that I spoke with, or the material handling people in Indianapolis, you ask anyone and they say no, it's not a great environment to run a business right now. We feel, the government is kind of after us a little bit. And that holds back on businesses from taking risks and hiring and investing and spending money. And then when there's more of a pro-business environment in Washington or even locally, it encourages business to take more risks. And that's how the country grows. I just think that, Senator Warren's positions on a lot of things and her continuous things that she says doesn't help the economy. It really doesn't.
I got to tell you, when I was doing that research, I found an article about a healthcare plan that Elizabeth Warren proposed when she was running for president. The article stated that you wouldn't be able to find a better healthcare plan than hers, and that that's especially true if you're a small business owner. Do you know who wrote that article?
Me.
You are absolutely right.
Yeah, because I am a huge supporter of national health. And I can have that debate with other people that are on the other side. I mean, again, I'm a moderate right Republican, Loren, but I liked Senator Warren's healthcare plan. It was a form of national healthcare, not too dissimilar from what is in Canada or what's in the UK. Those plans are flawed. They have their issues like any other plan, but I believe that a national health plan similar to what Senator Warren was proposing would be a good thing for small businesses, because it would take the whole healthcare thing out of our hands. We just pay a tax and it levels the playing field. So I like that with her. All that, listen, she can come back and propose stuff like that. That's great. But see if you see her talking about that anywhere in the past 2 years on her Twitter feed, and you'll find she's not. Instead, what she's been talking about is just continuous attacks on big corporations and, the wealthy and, all the not constructive, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's why I think it's bad for the economy.
And fair point. Again, I'm not here defending her. To me, I think it's important to think about issues and how they affect specific parts of the economy, specific types of businesses. I think the Chamber of Commerce can be criticized for sometimes just backing big corporations, big businesses, and losing sight of, what really represents, more than half the economy and the small businesses.
Yeah, I agree. And, like everything else in this world, it's frustrating because both the Chamber of Commerce and the NFIB are accused of leaning too much to the right. And frankly, they do. So that's an issue. And then I've got all these other people, these other small business organizations. And I think John, from the Small Business Majority, who I think is
John Ahrensmeyer, yes. Yeah,
who's awesome. I mean, he's great. And, his heart's in the right place and a lot of great ideas. But, his organization clearly leans to the left, And when I deal with organizations,
he would quibble with that. I'll point out, but
that's fine. But when I get stuff sent to me from different organizations, if it comes from the right or it comes from the left, as a business owner, I start to, question the data and the resources and where they're coming from. Do you know what I mean? Because even those organizations have become so much more politicized over the years. And, I truly think, and if this goes against what most people believe, I think the whole narrative now is that the country's splitting apart. But I really do believe at some point there's a tipping point where, where moderatism, if that's a word, becomes more commonplace. Because Loren, you lean a little bit to the left, but you're a moderate guy. Do you know what I mean? And so there's a lot of things that you would agree or disagree with someone like myself. But I think you'd be more open to getting your facts and information and supporting a group that is more down the middle than somebody that leans too far to the left.
Well, what I really admire is someone who does what you did with that piece about Elizabeth Warren's health plan. You didn't just react to the label, oh, this is coming from a, far left Democrat. You looked at the plan and said, this is a great plan for small businesses. And I think that's what we need more of. We need to just get rid of the labels, look at the facts, and try to make a smart decision. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen.
And I tell you one thing, and I know, hope we don't get too off topic here, but the biggest issue that we faced last Friday, they announced the unemployment number. It's like at a record low number. Every business owner I talk to, they just can't find people. It's for some businesses, it's devastating. Like unemployment is like a huge issue in this country, not unemployment, but lack of workers. The tight labor market. To me, the solution to this is immigration. To me, it's clear. New York last week also announced an emergency, I think on Friday, stating, because of the amount of immigrants coming into the city, and I just, there's got to be legislation to be passed to make these people legalized and available to work in small businesses. It would be such a huge antidote to this situation. And like you just said, I just wish that our political leaders can put aside the right and the left thing and say, like, this would be a really good thing if we can, come together, even in a divided Congress, and figure out a way to make, these immigrants have a path for legalization, if anything, just to help out all these businesses, small businesses in particular, that are desperate for workers. I think that is a huge, huge potential solution to this problem that's just staring us in the face. And I wonder if our political leaders will be able to come to, I wonder if Elizabeth Warren can agree with Marco Rubio on a solution. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but I think you raised the right issue, and that's something that hopefully we will come back to.
Yeah, I hope so.
Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. Thank you, Gene. Always a pleasure. Appreciate you digging into this with me. Look forward to doing it again. Have a great week, everyone.
Love you, Loren. See you next week.
Thanks, Gene.